Why would anyone write a request just to take home scraps? That's the question that made Jack Delaney stop mid-sentence. The office was quiet, 11:02 p.m. Everyone else had gone home hours ago. But there it was, tucked inside a stack of HR forms, a single line note from a name he barely recognized. Not a complaint, not a demand, just a question. Would it be possible to take home any leftover meals after my shift? Jack was the CEO. He'd seen thousands of employee requests over the years. But this one, it made him pause. The handwriting was neat, almost formal, like someone trying too hard not to sound desperate. He stared at the paper, then typed the name into the system: Emily Sanders. Line cook 25. No emergency contacts, no listed address, no HR flags, just a quiet, spotless record. And in that moment, long after the lights were off and the city outside had gone to sleep, Jack made a decision. He was going to follow her, not because he didn't trust her, but because something about that one sentence request whispered, this is bigger than food. Thank you for being here. Sometimes, the smallest moments carry the greatest meaning. Today's story is one of those. Quiet, powerful, and worth remembering. If it touches your heart, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. And if you'd like more stories like this, you're warmly invited to subscribe and tap the bell so you won't miss the next one. Now let's take a closer look at what really happened. Jack Delaney hadn't been out the back door of his corporate building in years. Not since the company had moved to its new glass-walled headquarters on the edge of the city. A building with a biometric elevator, an espresso bar on every floor, and parking spaces that bore executive names like medals. But tonight, he slipped out the service exit. No chauffeur, no leather briefcase, just a wool coat pulled tight, and a strange tension in his chest that he couldn't quite name. He wasn't sure what he expected to see. Emily Sanders was just a line cook, one of 300 employees at North Point Hospitality Group. He wouldn't have recognized her in a crowd. Her name appeared on schedules and kitchen shift rosters, but never on reports, never on problems. That's why her quiet little note bothered him. Employees didn't write down requests like that unless they had to. Across the parking lot, under a low-sodium streetlight, Jack spotted her. Apron untied, hair pinned back, a few strands falling loose from heat and grease. A paper bag tucked carefully under her arm, the leftovers, and a canvas backpack, frayed at the seams, slung across her shoulder. She wasn't in a rush. But she didn't dawdle either. Like someone with a mission waiting at the end of every day, she turned down 7th Avenue and walked toward the corner bus stop, not a glance behind her. Jack hesitated. For the first time in years, he realized he had no idea what route the night bus took. He'd only ever seen it in the distance like a ghost train for the people who didn't belong in boardrooms. But tonight, that ghost carried one of his people, and he needed to know why. Jack climbed into his car. No black SUV or tinted glass tonight, just his old silver Lexus from college, the one he kept in the back garage. He didn't start it right away. He watched. She stood beneath a flickering street lamp, shifting her weight between tired feet. Arms crossed, the bus was late. The wind was sharp. She didn't flinch. When the headlights finally appeared, she climbed aboard without looking up. Jack followed, 5 cars back. He hadn't ridden behind a city bus in years. He forgot how slow they moved, how they coughed black smoke at every red light, how they groaned as they turned down streets with names he didn't recognize. At every stop, Jack thought, she'll get off here. But she didn't. The lights grew dimmer. The billboards disappeared. The boutique gyms and yoga cafes gave way to pawn shops, cracked sidewalks, and liquor stores that never closed. After nearly an hour, she finally pulled the yellow cord. Jack parked a block away and killed the engine. It wasn't fear. It was something else, shame maybe. Or maybe a realization. He had created a company where someone could work double shifts and still come home to this. He ducked lower in his seat as she turned the corner. And then, he saw it. Not an apartment, not even a house, a trailer. Not the kind you tow for vacation, the kind that never moves. Because it can't. Its paint was chipped. One of the steps sagged inward. The curtains in the window were mismatched. The doorframe had a crack in it you could slip a letter through. Emily fumbled with her key, balancing the bag against her chest. The door creaked as it opened. A light flickered on. Jack could see shadows on the wall. Then, three small figures ran into view. Children, laughing, hungry, clinging to her legs. Emily knelt without hesitation. The exhaustion in her shoulders melted, for just a moment. Jack's chest tightened. She had a family, and she was feeding them with scraps from a luxury kitchen. Jack stayed parked across the street. Engine off. Street lamp above him buzzing like a dying fly. The trailer's curtains glowed faintly from inside. Light spilled in small pulses, like the last breath of an overworked bulb. He leaned forward, gripping the steering wheel so hard his knuckles faded to white. What was he looking for? He didn't know. Only that he couldn't leave. Inside, Emily moved like someone used to running on empty. No hesitation. No time to rest. She unpacked the brown paper bag like it was a feast, dividing its contents onto 4 chip plates, not 5. Jack noticed that immediately. 4 plates, for 5 people. 3 children, maybe ages 5 to 10, were already tearing into the food like they hadn't eaten in days. A frail woman, gray-haired, slow to move, sat carefully at the table. Her hands trembled just trying to hold a fork. Emily sat down last. But she didn't eat. She moved her fork, cutting food into smaller pieces, rearranging it like it mattered. She nodded when one of the kids said something. She smiled when they laughed. She sipped water. But she didn't take a single bite. Jack blinked. Once, then again. She was pretending. Pretending to eat so no one would worry. Pretending to be okay so they could rest easier. She was starving. On purpose, his stomach turned. A raw, hollow twist that cut deeper than guilt. He remembered his own dinner that night. A filet mignon barely touched. A 14 glass of Bordeaux. The check, north of 200. And yet this woman, after 16 hours of labor, was giving away her food in a trailer that barely had insulation. Then came the question. The one that would stay with him forever. A boy, maybe 11, looked up from his plate. Did you eat at work today? Emily froze. Just a flicker. A second. A beat skipped in her smile. Then came the lie. Yeah. I had something earlier. The boy didn't believe her. You could see it in his eyes. But he nodded anyway, and went back to chewing. Jack exhaled slowly. The window was starting to fog from his own breath. His heartbeat sounded like thunder inside the car. He felt ashamed. Not because he'd seen something wrong, but because he hadn't. This had been going on for months. Maybe longer. One of his most reliable workers. Clocked in early, clocked out last. Living in a box with no central heat. Skipping dinner so 3 kids and an elderly woman could eat. And no one knew. Because she didn't complain. Because she was still doing her job. Because she never said a word. Then Jack saw something else, something that broke him completely. A mattress, thin as a bath towel, tucked in the corner, just feet from the kitchen floor. No frame, no sheets. A single blanket, folded neatly like a soldier making her bed. That was her bed. No pillow, no room, no rest. After 16 hours at the grill, after pretending to eat, after packing leftovers home like treasure, Emily Sanders laid her body down, on a strip of foam, next to a broken toaster and a flickering outlet. And she did it every night. Outside, Jack sat frozen, and for the first time in his career, he didn't feel like a CEO. He felt like a fraud. A man who signed checks, hosted company retreats, bragged about corporate culture, while people like Emily were hiding in plain sight. And he had no one to blame but himself. Jack Delaney didn't drive away. Not after the lights in the trailer went out. Not after the kids crawled into a sleeping corner behind a curtain strung with twine. Not even after Emily pulled that thin blanket over her back and turned toward the wall, like she'd done it 1,000 nights before. He just sat there, watching a silence he had helped build. The wind had picked up, rattling old road signs. A dog barked somewhere down the street. A siren moaned in the distance. But inside his car, nothing. Only the ticking sound of the clock on his dashboard, each second asking the same question. What are you going to do about it? He looked around his Lexus. The leather seats. The automatic climate control. The digital dash that cost more than her entire trailer. He could afford all this, and more. Because of people like Emily. People who never asked for recognition. People who gave more than they had. People who were invisible until they weren't. He opened his phone, scrolled to Operations Head of Employee Services, and pressed call. It rang twice. A tired voice picked up. Sir? Everything okay? Jack didn't hesitate. No, he said, his voice steady. Everything is not okay. There was a pause. I'm sorry. We've got people starving, Jack said. We've got employees working double shifts and going home to trailers with no beds. Another pause. Then, cautiously, is this about someone specific? Jack clenched his jaw. This is about all of them. Every single name you and I have looked past for years because they never asked for more than they were given. Silence. Jack didn't wait. Tomorrow, first thing, get legal, HR, and operations in the boardroom. I don't care what's on the calendar. We're rewriting this company from the inside out. He didn't wait for a response. He hung up. Because this wasn't a discussion anymore. This was a decision. That night, Jack never went home. He parked outside that trailer until the sun turned the sky pink with guilt. Until a milk truck passed him with a soft hiss. Until he saw Emily step outside again. Same coat, same backpack, same soft determination in her walk. He watched her board the morning bus again. Still tired. Still smiling. Still pretending. By 8:00 a.m., Jack Delaney walked into North Point's headquarters. Not as a CEO in a tailored suit, but as a man with his sleeves rolled and a fire burning behind his eyes. By noon, the world had already shifted. New memos went out. Leftover food would now be repackaged and distributed daily to staff who needed it. No requests necessary. Wages were re-evaluated, starting with kitchen staff. No full-time worker would ever again have to choose between rent and food. A new emergency assistance fund was launched, quietly with dignity. No more red tape. Just help. And Emily, she came in at 2:00 p.m. for her shift, just like always. She clocked in, washed her hands, tied her apron, until her manager, a man who could barely hold the envelope steady, pulled her aside. Hey, Emily. The executive team, they asked me to give you this. She blinked. Am I in trouble? He shook his head. Just open it. Inside was a letter. Short, handwritten. A raise, not a bonus. Not a one-time check. A permanent raise. Enough to move out of that trailer. Enough to buy a bed. Enough to eat without shame. She stared at the paper. Not in disbelief, but in relief. The kind of relief that makes your knees go soft. And for the first time in months, maybe years, Emily Sanders sat down during her break, unwrapped her meal, and actually ate. For herself. Not pretending. Not rationing. Just a woman with food on her plate and peace in her chest. The funny thing is, no one ever noticed. No front-page news. No press release. No photo op of a CEO shaking hands with a kitchen worker. That's not how it happened. Emily Sanders just kept showing up to work the way she always had. Quiet, consistent, unshaken. The only difference. She no longer had to hide her hunger behind a smile. Jack Delaney didn't announce anything to the company. He didn't need to. The changes were already working their way through the bones of the system. Real changes. Structural ones. The kind that don't fade after a quarter. The kind that outlive applause. He made a few quiet visits to other locations, sat down with janitors, listened to warehouse teams, shared coffee with the night crew. No tie, no title. And he saw it again, the pattern, people working twice as hard just to be seen half as much. He had missed it for years. And once you've seen it, really seen it, you can't go back. That trailer. Emily left it 2 months later. The day she moved, she carried boxes one by one with her younger brother by her side. Her grandmother smiled from the passenger seat of a borrowed van. The kids ran around in circles on the front lawn of the new apartment. Bare walls, cheap blinds, but solid floors. There was even room for a small desk and a real bed, not foam, not a folded blanket on linoleum, but a place where a woman could finally rest. One evening, Jack drove past that same trailer park. It was empty now, just the wind clicking a rusted chain on the gate. He pulled over, stepped out, walked up to the front lot, and just stood there. Not for long, just long enough to remember what it felt like to see something you can't unsee. A girl who never asked for attention, only for a bag of leftovers, and somehow changed an entire company. Because sometimes leadership doesn't start in a boardroom. Sometimes, but it starts in the dark, on a quiet street, outside a flickering trailer. With a question no one should ever have to write, would it be okay if I took home the extra food? So many people around us are carrying more than we know. So many are smiling while starving, working while hurting, serving while barely surviving. They don't always say it out loud, but they're there every day. People like Emily. And if you're in a position to see them, really see them, then please, don't look away. Don't wait for a policy. Don't wait for permission. Do something. Even the smallest act might be the one thing that saves someone's day, or their dignity, or their hope. We talk a lot about leadership these days, about vision, about growth, about strategy and scale. But maybe the truest kind of leadership, the one that really matters, starts with something simpler. Seeing someone, not their resume, not their uniform, not their numbers on a spreadsheet, but their humanity, a tired smile after 16 hours, a folded blanket on the kitchen floor, a quiet question about leftovers, written with dignity by someone too proud to beg. That's not a request, that's a whisper. And most days, we're too loud to hear it. So here's the question: how many people around us are carrying invisible weight while we walk right past them? And if we do have power, whether it's a title, a voice, or simply a moment of time, what are we doing with it? The world won't always ask us to change it, but sometimes it gives us a chance. And when that happens, don't wait. Open your eyes, step in, and let your actions speak louder than your silence. Thank you for being here. Sometimes, the smallest moments carry the greatest meaning. This story was one of them, quiet, powerful, and worth remembering. If it moved your heart, share your thoughts in the comments. Has there been a moment where you saw something and couldn't look away? We'd love to hear it. And if stories like this matter to you, stories that aren't loud, but stay with you long after, please consider subscribing and tapping the bell. That way, you won't miss the next one. Until then, see someone help someone. And never underestimate the power of showing up.